Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha.
All right. So we are now in the stage, and actually, the text we're on right now is a very strong foundational text. So it's really valuable uh, for what we've been talking about. And we're in this aspect of the five hindrances, these hindrances that prevent us. Often it's taught specifically in relation to meditation. Uh, but you'll notice, as we've talked about for the last 2 weeks, it's a big hindrance in life. And that first one is the sensual desires, uh, these distractions of the senses and our attachments and how they get in the way. So we've had 2 weeks on that, and I think we're still there. I know some you guys stop being attached. Let's move on. Yeah, I'm number one offender. But yeah, let's pop on the text. And there's two things I want to key in on here. I have this one sentence that I keep highlighted, and we've gone back to it both times because it really is the essence of how to deal with this. Remembering the impermanent and unsatisfactory nature of the desirable object or person is helpful to subdue the urge to grasp it in order to fill the void, boredom, loneliness inside of us. I mean, that's kind of the whole deal there. If I actually recognize that what I'm so worked up over, well, it's impermanent, and even once I have it, it's not that exciting. And then it's undesirable or desirable nature, right? Is that thing really got what I'm projecting into it? Or is my mind just attaching all these qualities that it's going to give me happiness that it cannot? And if we were to every single day really engage in noticing our attachments and then challenging them, which is different than a healthy desire or an aspiration. Those are fine. It's the attachment. It's what are we imbuing upon that as a source of happiness that's not there versus a deep aspiration or, joy. I would like to, be a good grandfather, I want to be a good grandfather. That's a great aspiration. Um, I may want to, Laura wanted to build a house. She built a house, you have an aspiration to build a house. It came together. May not have, right? Single mom, raising a couple kids, building a house. Could have happened, maybe not happen. It was worth your time, right? It was an aspiration. She's not attached to it at all. And we sit here and we think about our human life, we have things that are meaningful to us, and that's important. But the attachment comes when it takes us away from living a life that's full and meaningful. So it takes us out of that zone. And so all day long, uh, it's like when I record in the morning, I kind of laugh all the time at the end of those two verses. Uh, contemplate this, and you'll realize all worldly actions are but wind of chaff, and night and day you must extract some essence of this life. I, a yogi, practice in this way. You, wanting liberation, should do the same. And then I giggle. Would you like liberation? You should do this. Here it is. Here's the directions. Just do this. You'll be totally free. And I go do something else. Like, wait a minute, I want liberation, but here I am doing everything but, and it reminded me of we're in the other center at the end, at the end of the hall. We're on both ends of the spectrum here, and somebody had met, and I met this Tibetan guy. You'd like him, yeah. He's a former Buddhist monk, and I met him, and uh, real great guy. I had a good talk with him, and yeah, I asked him, are you, you want to come to this Dharma center? And the guy's like, nah, I'm too busy, man. I got work to do. I got a family, and I'm working, and I'm way too busy building samsara to find freedom. I'm really busy decorating samsara right now to make time to free myself. And that's where this kind of gets me, is like, if I actually knew what this stuff was keeping me away from, like the treasure's right here, and yet the mind gets caught up in worldly activities, desires, and actions that seem so fulfilling for all of however long they last. And it's so easy to get distracted by those things. So if one were to, just every day, throughout the day, just be real clear, this could be my last day. What's really important? What's really meaningful? Notice the impermanence of my own desire for something. My latest desire, by the way, is a DeWalt half-inch drive impact cordless gun. Whew, it's going to show up tomorrow, by the way. And this thing's a beast. So, it's going to show up tomorrow. Did I mention that? Okay, yeah. No, I'm sorry. It's been tested. Yeah. And, so you can watch. We have these things and you go, but in reality is, actually neat, because I'm hoping that, anyway, I'm going to fix this Volvo and do these things. But you can see, okay, then you get it. Then how long is that, attachment last? And then I'm on to something else, or to something else, right? And, whatever it is. And we could, I remember my college degree, and that big deal. It was meaningful. It was very helpful. Got my college degree, and my mom was there. It was a cool deal, And, but I haven't really thought about that until just now when I'm talking about it. My life has continued. And so we have these moments in our life that are meaningful and productive, and then the mind goes to the next thing, and then to the next thing. And so noticing the impermanent nature of those moments, what's actually going to be at the end of my life meaningful? And what's taking me away? And then how much time and energy have I wasted wanting to look a certain way? I remember when I got divorced, man, yeah, I was working out. I wanted to look good, and single again, And I was getting so big, my daughter said, "You need to stop lifting weights, dude, because your head looks small." And, and yeah, Alyssa remembers some of that time. But, and, desire, right? Attachment, then how you look. And then you um, then, well, yeah, when you do have a partner, you're maybe not working as hard and so forth. What's that? Fat and happy. Yeah, I know. Sorry, honey. I can show you pictures of how I used to look good if you want, but it's not going to be helpful. And so, we notice these things, and we get so worked up over, and then throughout our lives, we can look back at a life and we can see all these, attachments and desires, and they've all come and they've gone. Relationships, jobs, the homes we lived in, the cars we've driven, the things we've purchased, and what's really meaningful. And so having the opportunity to notice the distinction between a healthy choice that's meaningful and an attachment, And, what's really going to support you in the life you want to live. So if one were to do that, we would notice, I would suspect I have in my own life, how many impulses and desires have wasted a huge amount of my life that winnow chaff, right? All worldly action but winnow chaff. And then so the fleetingness of it, and then the way we project the desirability, which is going to be in this next section. It's really just about executive function. It's pretty hard to get because emotions, thoughts, impulses, patterns, desires come in the way. Just being conscious is really going to support the life I want to live, path I'm on. We do so much out of autopilot and impulse and desire. So let me pop this back up and get to yes. So we read this little section on desire as it was pretty scary actually when we read it. The net of demons and entangling web from which it is difficult to escape, and you could see when we get emotional, when we get angry, when all these things arise, we're going to find up, all that attachment, desire, like drawing close to a fiery pit, those people who are attached to desire like convicts in a prison, like a deer caught in a coral trap, like birds snared in a net, like fish who have swallowed a hook, like a crow in the midst of a band of owls. Desires are like blind men approaching an abyss, like a fly caught in hot oil, like a peaceful man caught up in military combat, like one who had entered a river of boiling brine. I'm not sure what that is. Brine. What's boiling brine?
Salt brine.
Oh, okay, salt brine. Like one who licks a honey smeared blade. That didn't sound very pleasant. So I think they're saying it's not very good for you. Okay, creates some suffering. Um, and it's interesting because you can take the big extremes of attachment, heartbreak, and all these things, and the despair and loss. And then when I really want to understand attachment, I go to little things like remember when we had the exercise about drink out of the coffee cup you don't like, and so the one you do like, and you just kind of notice like I'm reaching the cupboard or just whatever cup's there, and notice the mind go, but I really like that cup. It's this little thing. Or go to the bathroom without your cell phone. Okay. And like for some people that's like horrific. What I have to go sit on a toilet without a distraction. That's like, and it's simple, right? It seemed very simple. People used to do it. Cell phones used to not exist. And but then it's these little attachments, these little addictions, these little things that we get so accustomed to that just get in the way, and then I can't even be free to be with myself in very simple ways. That's where I noticed the real sneaky waste of time and energy, impulse. um, you know got this commitment in the morning to not, get into that phone in the morning until after my practices, instead of, what's the email got to deal with or whatever. And notice the poll, notice the poll. Well, you should probably just check, did that thing post? And just these subtle ways that none of that will have any meaning in my life, maybe in an hour, let alone, at the end of my life, what's really meaningful. And so these cravings and attachments, things that, really just want pleasure. And then I want to get to Shanti Deva's point. And one of the, and this is good with all things, but this is one that they teach us in the monastic world is as monks are celibate and nuns are celibate and so forth. When our mind becomes overwhelmed by sensual desire, an excellent antidote is contemplating the foul nature of the body, our own and others, to calm lust and craving. In chapter 8 of Engaging in the Bodhisattva's Deeds, Shantideva presents the body to us as it actually is, exposing the senselessness of lust. Meditating on these verses, as well as analyzing the parts of the body in meditation, are effective methods for counteracting sexual attachment. And, for the record, that's you kind of think about the body without the skin, and then you got muscle and tissue and bile and fluids, and it's not very attractive. And and then you start really looking at how people are just on the smooth skin or what's on the outside, and then is it the skin that you're attracted to, or beneath that is all this stuff, and this stuff, as we know, gets older and it changes and it decays. And so they have these meditations to recognize what's really this body and this thing I'm attached to. And when you go through it, and it's like, am I really just attached to a thin layer of skin that's covering up all this? Or is it all the mental projection into the qualities of something that looks like this? And as you go through those meditations, you start to recognize, wow, what I'm really attached to is all the projection in my mind about this shape and that skin and that thing. But that's all mental. It's not the actual thing. And when you look at it, and you realize we get old and things change, and but it's all mental projected conditioning that we're imputing upon something like skin. But what is it you really appreciate maybe about someone? And so the desire, is arising literally from a concept in the mind about what someone should look like according to you in a way. But when you dissect it down to that and look beyond the skin, it gets much less attractive. My teacher, though, instead of teaching that, he said just to see everyone as skeletons, then we're all pretty equal. Well, just everybody's a skeleton. So nobody's super attractive. We're all just skeletons. Yeah.
There was actually an art exhibition that was bodies without their skin and all the muscles and all the different body parts under the skin.
All right, an art exhibit just online to make sure everybody caught that without the skin. So all the muscles, the tissues, and the fluids.
The skin.
Yeah. It doesn't look as exciting. Can you hand a mic to Kevin behind you there?
Yeah, as you were talking about your examples, I think of like very different types of desires. Like there's that like classic desire that's this like sensual thing, and you do get caught up in that, like, this is going to make me happy forever. I just need this. But then you also reference like these everyday ones that are different. Like I don't think anybody thinks that looking at their phone before they finish their practice is going to give them unending happiness, nor like these other things that we do just out of a matter of like certain comforts they provide, like if it's watching TV at the end of the day, or even like your favorite coffee cup. So yeah, I mean, I think that like that response of being, well, this is not going to give me and unending happiness like you offered makes sense for that one class of desire. But then these other ones that we do, and they provide some sort of relief, but it seems like there's a different anecdote needed to them.
It's interesting. I'm not sure the antidote's different, but they are very different, right? One's going to be like, I keep mentioning when Jill Miller left me, kicked me to the curb. That was pretty devastating, man. Couple days, fetal on the floor. She left me. Oh, it's horrible. Which I don't have if I lost my phone for a day, right? But the mind body, and I've kind of been mentioned this in the sense of the mind body that we have, so they're very interrelated, right? We have sensations goes the brain, things get wired, and there's an unconscious, awareness that has retained memory, everything that we've done in our life, things that have hurt me, things that have felt good, and foods I like, foods I had weird feelings towards. It's all there. So the mind body operates on this spectrum of gradient from painful to pleasurable. And it remembers, like I can feel good if I do this. But it's not operating on executive function around delayed gratification, all those things that we get to apply, which we was with our more conscious mind. It says, if I work hard and I do this and I'll get that, and we can be motivated. But sort of automatically, autonomously, it knows I can push a button and be distracted and I'll get a dopamine hit, pleasure, reward. And then I don't have to be bored. So I don't have to do something different. And so it starts robbing us of other things that we might be cultivating in our lives as we're getting our dopamine hits all the time. And I don't have to be uncomfortable, and I don't have to be with myself, and I can be distracted and comforting, right? Pleasure. But what's happening, if you read Dopamine Nation, Anna Lemke, psychiatrist, tense, talks about the dopamine deficit, then you're always actually in deficit of that and uncomfortable if you don't have. And so it starts an addictive way of being that robs us, as opposed to that deeper one where I don't believe the phone will bring me happiness. I might even be aware it's causing me suffering. But I do have a belief that the right house, the right car, the right relationship, the thing that I'm doing is going to bring it to me. So that level of delusion is much higher, right? And grasping much stronger. And so you're right. But the antidote is probably still the same, right? Noting the way it robs me of my happiness when I think it's going to give me my happiness. If we notice the things that you have the strongest stress, worry, and fear about, they're the things that you feel will mostly bring you the happiness you want on the deepest levels. We're more protective of that because it's going to bring us our happiness. So we fear losing it. We fear not getting it. We need to take care of it and guard it. And so it actually robs us of freedom. And the attachment is at a whole different level. It's hard to appreciate it because, trying to guard it. But the antidote still becomes recognizing, does it really add the value you want to your life or not? Let's be realistic. And it's impermanent. Even the best situation we have will change. And so there's a lot of suffering that takes place trying to make things permanent that aren't permanent, like my job or my relationship or my friends or, whatever that is. So the key is the attachment is only related to the exaggerated quality to it, which is, I think, the point you're making. I can have that towards these things where I may not have a conscious exaggerated quality to these other little comforts, right? But on a very subconscious level, the mind body does have an attachment. It says, I can feel good right now. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with watching a little TV, kicking back, and just don't eat day old custard donuts. when you're doing it. Okay. I learned that lesson the hard way. Custard needs to be refrigerated. So the next day, a day and a half later, it's called food poisoning. Yeah.
For John.
The suffering of change. Yeah. Yeah.
I just something that's helped me, and it just goes into what you're talking
Microphone,
about.
please, because you're going to help everybody online too.
I think it's easy to kind of get caught up in like isolated incidents. Like it is, I'm choosing my favorite coffee cup, and maybe I kind of isolate that from everything else. But, going along with the theme of these kind of addictive qualities, what you're talking about, these little subconscious moments that happen over and over and over again, they're not isolated. And that comes back up again as desire, but it might not be towards a coffee cup. It might be going towards some other object of desire, but it's the same kind of driving energy, if you will, that is propelling me in that direction, that creates more suffering around an object I view as permanent. So it's been helpful for me to just also kind of bring in that these little moments are not isolated, and they can easily build up and spill into different facets of life, in different ways.
Yeah. And the wiring takes place, even biologically, I could even have my mind recognize I don't want to do that, but I can't not do that, because it's so wired in there. May not have the capacity to not do something because the reward centers. Yeah. We always need to have some balance, right? Yeah. Is it Kurt?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I was just asked about, I guess, is this resetting my expectations around this, right? And I mean, what I'm trying to get to is a place where I get that reward from noticing the fact that I'm doing this rather than expecting to never do it again. Because I get this kind of, I guess Western mentality where, if I fail, it's a failure. If I look at YouTube shorts, right? Or if I do, and really what I need to do, what I'm finding in myself is that the joy starts to become more evident when I even just noticing that it's coming up and doing my best to avert it, but then not beating the crap out of myself when I fail, right? Because I'm going to fail. I mean, as I understand it, we're going to fail. No, until we're enlightened, we're going to fail at this, right? This is a part of samsara. Am I understanding that correctly? I mean, is it possible to get perfect on this where we never have these attachments come up? Right? I mean, what's the goal here, I guess? And is it 3 countless eons from now that I'm going to get the reward? Because I'm getting better at delayed gratification, but 3 countless eons is just an awful long time to wait. How about 2?
It does seem kind of a time. Yeah. And no, we get better at noticing the attachments. We get better at not always giving in to them. And here's where this practice is. As we build up the reward of doing something else, the mind body starts going, doing this other thing was actually pretty good. And then, so those pathways of reward of, this joyous effort of engaging in virtue and maybe, setting the phone aside for whatever time and you did it and you feel good that you did it. And And then what happens is over time, the reward centers, can shift. And then things that we used to compulsively do aren't as interested. So back to Jitsuma Tenzin Palmo, that analogy of carrying the blankie, with you everywhere when you're a little kid. And so over time, other things become more interesting, and the blankie we leave at home more. And it's more like that. You may have noticed that in your life, right? You're doing things on a weekend now that you probably didn't, used to think were very interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I see that, and yes, and so yeah, I'm actively trying to retrain my mind around that being the reward, right? The noticing of that
Yeah, that
and
is a reward. Yeah.
it being the reward
Yeah,
because
exactly. And that
yeah,
becomes interesting. And then
right,
you also notice might have a little more free will there too.
yeah,
But on
and
the
then not,
YouTube, oh, go ahead.
go ahead, no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna be, if you do watch YouTube Shorts, check out the DeWalt DCF 900 Impact and its comparison against Snap-on and Makita. It's just, I mean, you're gonna be there all day.
Well, we just bought a Sawzall that was necessary and wonderful. You can really saw things with it.
We're shopping for furniture for our new
Furniture,
house.
oh my
We won't
God.
even tell you how many hours we've been online looking at the furniture.
Yeah. Mm. So the real interesting piece here is when we notice how much suffering attachment brings. And that's, I think, the good thing you're pointing out is there's notice these habitual patterns and how uncomfortable when we don't have that comfort, or how uncomfortable it is when things aren't going the way I want them to go, or and the attachments to people driving appropriately on the highway, that I might have. And you start noticing these attachments. It can be any object and things. And the attachment is the elaborative exaggeration to the quality of what I'm attending to, instead of just a simple thing. Generally, most of our needs are basically met. We're sitting there. I'm drinking water right now, and nothing fancy about that, And and when you're thirsty, water's pretty good. May offer something else kind of fancier, and then desire kicks in. I was fine one moment, now I'm not. And so equanimity is this state, which is so in meditation and in these states, when get to the state of focus, of equanimity, you're going to notice these hindrances, the impulses, the desires, the mind. I need to do this or that, so it's hard for me to meditate because I know I only have X amount of time and I have these things to do. Mind's going to start, getting caught up in those things, attachments. Things that become so much more important than actually, listening to the person in front of me, opening our heart. So the opportunity then is when we think about is, are these activities adding to the overall quality of my well-being, the life I want to live, the person I want to be? Or are they taking me away from it? And then don't go to the extreme of beating yourself up for being a human being who's working in a process of letting go over time and learning the reward of virtue, and doing the things you feel good about, being a little more free. But that takes time to rewire those systems. And consistency is key. We can go do, a month or 2 months and, go do retreat, get away from all technology and be very, I get it. And then come back and 3 months later, you're doing all the same stuff, And it's like, oh, okay. So this steady progress of taking a little time to bring to mind, notice the impulses, activities that rob you from what you really would like to do. And have those big aspirations, about being a good person, about engaging in virtue, about doing things that are meaningful and exciting in your life that feel fulfilling. All right, Alyssa.
I find that doing those little practices, choosing a different coffee cup, um, not opening up my phone when that desire comes, and I actually have the same practice as you do, John, that I've been doing for a long time, not opening it up until uh, I'm done with my morning practice, and I don't count, our morning practice. That's part of it, right? On the phone. But besides that,
Yeah.
but I find that doing those little practices really help me with when the bigger, more possibly impactful desires show up. And oh, I'm okay when it comes to engaging my free will with the small stuff. It makes doing the hard stuff easier, and then definitely noticing afterwards, yeah, that felt really good to not to do what I know I'm going to feel good about when I go to bed at night, to do what might have been difficult in the moment, but doing the right thing because it's the right thing. And those, but I guess what I'm saying is that the small practices help with the more impactful ones, making them more accessible. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah, well put. It's interesting. Sometimes there's a pattern of, when we really have to walk through something really, really difficult, most people rise to the occasion. But they fly off the handle at the little thing that triggered, because all the unresolved stuff, it's that last little thing that really knocks people off for a loop. So that practice of doing those little things and bringing that attention, wow, what a difference that makes.
I think it's part of the meditation, right? It's bringing the meditation off the cushion and continually being aware. It all connects for me. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Laura and I got some practice last weekend, right? We were watching a granddaughter in a softball tournament, international tournament, playing for Ireland. And all the pressure and the kids and win. It's a tight game, 4-3. What'd you ask me? Like, how?
Well, I had been. So there's people have come from all over the country, the families are there, and there's, as John said, a lot of pressure. And I was just observing all the cheering and then when something, they got an out or something. And I was watching my own mind and asking myself the question, how do I be here without attachment and aversion? And so I turned to John and I said, so how do we do this with equanimity, being in the stands, being grandparents, it was good just to be exploring that. It was good practice. Yeah. And for me, it was identifying like how many meaningful skills the girls are learning, how much self-confidence they're building, like how this is good for all of them and wishing them all well rather than just rooting for one or the other.
I gotta say, it was tough for me to watch Japan. They got down like 17-0. Oh man, it hurt to watch. Gotta say, that one was tough, Yeah. Yeah, because but the way they get back up and they just show up for another inning, it's a lot of ability to keep playing, even when you're getting beat that bad, but that was difficult for me. I was like, they're 13, 14, and they're stealing bases, man, and I'm like, really, like And they say, well, at this level, that's what you do. And I'm like, well, poor kids. But anyway, yeah, so these emotions come up, and the opportunity to have the emotions, to feel them. And allow them. So I think that's probably a good place, because we go to malice and ill will next. So that'll be a fun topic next week. Anybody else last thoughts before we wrap up? All right. Well, the invitation then is to notice, and by sensual desires, that smell, taste, the senses and the mind, and it's just questioning, am I exaggerating the qualities? That's what I do. I just notice, am I exaggerating? I don't exaggerate much, I don't think, but just let me tell a story. So is, where's the story that we tell, the exaggeration around something? And then, how do we really want to engage? What really helps? And I love the input that everybody has had and the opportunity we have to even notice. And the key takeaway is to allow yourself the reward of noticing, allow yourself the reward of not doing something, allow yourself the reward that you did meditate, allow yourself the reward of, because we do good stuff all day long and we don't reward ourselves for that. And that's just what we do. But I notice the stuff I don't do well. So really a constant state of reward and acknowledgement for what we do well. And then we get to rewire. Wow, this is good for me. I feel good about it. All right, so let's go ahead and take a moment to be in this moment. We can dedicate merit and wisdom from our time together. Make sure I can pull up the dedication here. So a lot of things we could have been doing on a Wednesday evening, but we have taken that time, the initiative to show up together, to learn, to understand, to open our hearts, to explore methods that allow us to live life with more freedom and clarity, less suffering, ways that are beneficial, not merely to ourselves, but to the world that we live in. It's a great deal of merit and hopefully a little wisdom. So let us dedicate any and all merit and wisdom from our time gathered here for the benefit of all sentient beings. May our collective efforts find its way into the world, reducing suffering, creating the conditions for liberation for all. Let us also dedicate for our own continued spiritual growth, that we may ultimately recognize our own Buddha nature, so we can be of greatest benefit to all. And with that context, those who care to can join in the dedication. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare